Hello, welcome to the webinar. Let's go ahead and get started. We've got a lot on the menu today, so after some brief introductions, we will start with the startling statistics of summer learning loss, the stats, facts, graphs, and how to combat summer's greatest foe. Then we'll move into the top tips for developing, preparing, and producing your perfect summer camp. After laying the perfect summer camp foundation, we'll dive into exactly what makes these camps so successful. From vanquishing summer learning loss to settling the world's future generations up for countless STEM ventures, we'll end with an examination of the most wildly successful summer camps. We will have a giveaway at the end of the webinar, so remember to stay through to the end, and let's go ahead and meet our presenters.
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle Fisher. I'm our Director of Curriculum Development. My background is in classroom and after-school education in both after-school programs and summer camps. I've had the chance to teach middle schoolers and high schoolers everything from turning compost to building robots to dividing fractions and balancing chemical equations. So I'm really excited to talk to you about the different STEM opportunities we can bring to your students today. We're joined also with Ben Moore, one of our STEM specialists.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I'm Ben Moore, STEM Program Specialist and Northeast Territory Manager here at PCS Edventures. In my youth, I was one of the first students to join the PCS lab here in Boise quite a while ago, 26 years ago. I also spent 5 years as a camp program facilitator in McCall, Idaho and Hunt, Texas, and completed my Master's of Education Technology degree from Boise State University in 2013.
Awesome.
And with that, should we jump right in?
Let's go for it.
All right.
So we all know that our students are capable of amazing things, and all of our work here at PCS is really guided by our experience with our students. So we've seen how powerful it can be for them to be engaged in the kind of programs we have here in our lab and that many people often have in their after-school programs. So even a small robotics program can build over time, provide students a sense of community and the opportunity to explore careers they may have never encountered before. And so over these 25 years, our passion is really around inspiring a love of STEM in students. And because of that, we've developed a lot of resources that we found to be really successful with the students that we work with here.
Absolutely. Well, and just to tie in with that, as a student myself, math was never my strongest subject. In fact, I would say I actively despised any kind of structured math course offering. Even so, in the late 80s or early 90s, PCS partnered with our local hands-on science center to offer a Leonardo da Vinci, I guess it would be well, it wasn't a camp, it was more of a display. We had lots of Leonardo da Vinci structures that had been reassembled. And so my team tackled building a functioning clock that kept relatively accurate time out of Legos. And needless to say, there was more math involved in trying to calculate the ratios for all of the gears and how much power we needed to feed it to the little Lego motors that were not designed quite for that task. But at the end of that project, we did have a fully functional three-hand Lego clock that mostly kept time. And as a parent of a teenager, I see this trend continues. I've got a 13-year-old who is fairly active in avoiding risk when it comes to learning. The fear of failure is very noticeable, and yet putting him in a lab environment here and engaging in summer camps with our dronology program, really takes a lot of that fear out of the equation, because it's completely new content that is not directly there's less fear of failure because it's content that no one's ever seen, and it's not it's not a structured this is today we're going to do math for an hour. It's let's figure out how we can make this drone fly.
Absolutely. And I've seen the same thing with the students I taught. It can be really powerful for them to have a chance to explore outside of math class or outside of science class. So you may have a student that says, oh, I don't like math, but after a year in robotics says, but I want to be a structural engineer. And if they have that interest, we know that they're capable of going forward and figuring out the math behind it. So that's really our goal, to put together exciting hands-on experiences that are easy to implement for instructors, that create that environment that's informal, that's encouraging, where students can really find what's their thing that they love and are motivated to do on their own. So because of this, we've really embraced STEM as one of our guiding philosophies for everything we do. So we know that technology and engineering can be incredibly motivating for students. It's something different. It's something you put your hands on. And through that, students can access a lot of these subjects that we know are so important for future careers and opportunities that they may not naturally be interested in at this point. So if you can learn math through gear ratios of something you've built yourself, learn science through 3D printing or building something that moves that you have to understand the physics of, you're going to be hitting all of that content that we know is so important, but in a way that's personally meaningful to you. So we've really embraced that integrated approach to STEM, to finding something that naturally incorporates all those things in a way that's exciting and meaningful to our students that we work with. So why do we do it? We've been in this for 25 years. There's been an incredible amount of change. The reason, I think, is the same reason all of you are here today, and it's definitely for our students. So all of us are thinking about the students that we've worked with, our experiences as a student, and so we're excited to talk to you today about how you can bring these kind of exciting STEM-focused experiences to the students in your programs.
Exactly. Now, a gladiator enters the arena, and we call it an educator's greatest foe, and that is, of course, summer learning loss. For over a century, summer vacation has been a staple part of public education, and as more research emerges on its lasting effects, we have countless questions about what it is and how something so negative could be affecting students everywhere. Does it have lasting effects? What can we do about them? And in order to take down this beast, we need to know everything we can about it, its secrets, its weak spots, and of course, where it's most vulnerable, because as educators, we cannot go to war blind.
So why does summer vacation even exist? Back when it was first implemented, many students had to work in agricultural settings in the summer. Schools often didn't have AC, but over time, more and more students lived in urban areas where those sort of constraints didn't apply. And so in fact, nearly 100 years ago in the 1920s, vacation schools were really popular to give opportunities to disadvantaged youth in urban areas, to help immigrant children assimilate. And yet over time, 100 years later, summer school often became kind of a remedial program where you had to go if you needed to make up content. And so over time, many students weren't going to any sort of summer programming over the summer. And the effects of that can be huge. So each summer, a student can lose up to 2 months of math computational skills, a month or more of spelling skills, and up to 2 months worth of reading skills. So as all teachers know, that means often up to 6 weeks of the beginning of the school year has to be spent relearning material that students learned the week before. Now that reading one is especially important, and Ben has a little more information on it.
Absolutely. Well, and as we get to our next slide, we can see that the research shows that not all of our students are impacted equally when it comes to summer learning loss. During the school year, as you'll notice, both lower income students and middle class students are relatively close and on parity during the school year. And there's a much more dramatic decrease in that retention on our disadvantaged or low income students. They experience a more dramatic loss than their middle class counterparts. So some relatively easy and ways to combat this: if we can get students reading 4 to 5 books over the summer, that has an extremely positive impact and is comparable to students that we see in summer school programming, to keeping them sharp and ready for the fall. Also, physical activity takes a hit in the summer as our students move out of the classroom and PE and into their nice air-conditioned home with their electronics and gaming systems and computers. If we can maintain their physical health, obviously that directly corresponds to their mental sharpness and having them ready to sit back and join us in the classroom with hopefully as little loss as possible. And clearly, without a massive overhaul in our education system, summer vacation is not going anywhere. So what can we do to give our students a leg up during their 3-month brain vacation? And what is going to be our secret weapon against summer learning loss? And that is where our supplemental summer education programs come in. Summer programming, it's an integral part of keeping our students healthy, active, and ready for fall. 10% of students nationwide participate in publicly funded summer programming. Another 15% participate in other programming, private camps or activities. So that leaves 75% of our students without any organized summer programming, which is certainly problematic in combating that summer learning loss. And 90% of summer school offerings are remedial content, so it's relearning material that they didn't get the fall and spring before.
So what this means is that the work you're doing is incredibly important. So just like cumulative summer learning loss can set students back, that cumulative gain that can compound over the years can give students a huge leg up as they're working through those year after year. So as you can see on this graph over time, that gain of students that attended some kind of summer camp programming added up to often several years worth of education that they were ahead of their peers that didn't get those opportunities over the summer. So through the rest of today, we want to share with you our 5 ingredients to a perfect summer camp program. We know how important high quality summer education is to our students. We want to do it well and make the best use of that time with our students. So secret ingredient number 1 is know your students. We want to get beyond just remedial programming and think about what can we offer students that's really naturally motivating to them. Maybe your students are into sports, arts, it could be STEM or STEAM, hands-on science. Think about what's going to naturally drive enrollment to be something students are excited to come to and are going to naturally want to engage in. You're going to know exactly what that is for your students, and this is going to give you a chance to really get creative about what sorts of things you want to teach. Maybe you want to go for a really individualized learning approach and set up a big makerspace over the summer where students can come, engage in engineering, technology, and really guide their own learning. Maybe you can take a creative approach. If your students need to review some content, you can find a fresh way to integrate it. So maybe Newtonian physics camp isn't such a hit, but you could totally turn it into a science of superpowers camp for your elementary students or a drone racing camp for your middle school students. If you can find a way to combine some of those together, that's going to be especially powerful. So if you have students that are interested in art and you want to expose them to new technology, maybe you put together a 3D printing art camp where students can come and design and print their own jewelry. So whatever you decide to do here, the second step also is going to know how your students are getting their information. So whether you're getting the word out through social media, through community events, working with your school system to send it out through the channels that already exist, make sure students know about the opportunities that are there and how they can participate and get access to those resources.
And secret number 2, getting creative. We need to find and offer exciting subjects and curriculum that will drive attendance and interest in our programming. Clearly no one wants to have a summer programming where they sit and work on, an hour of math and an hour of English and an hour of what have you. So if we can integrate the math and reading and writing activities into the camp itself without the appearance of formal lessons, we can, continue to keep our students sharp and ready for fall, without having them, dragging their feet and coming along kicking and screaming, thinking that they're in summer school. Gamified programming is incredibly popular, and again, it takes the more formalized lesson and converts it into, an individual or group game activity. Again, where you have students they're still learning, but they're focused on the game and not so much on the lesson the lesson plan, incorporating physical challenges. Again, keeping our kids active is incredibly helpful in them being able to process and retain information. Keeping our content fresh and building on experiences year after year. Ideally, we have content in place so that summer programs can progress for students that attend year after year, and that they're not simply repeating the same content every summer. Ideally we have content that is recyclable, so new students can start at the beginning, and returning students can progress through the material onto more exciting and complex iterations as they proceed.
Absolutely. And that's our secret number 3 right there, is once you've identified these high interest areas, think systematically about how you can make a program that students can come to year after year. So maybe if your younger students start with bricks, your older students work up to robots and eventually building larger things. Sometimes we hear from programs that they have awesome ideas, but if students are doing, for example, rocketry year after year, they're going to get bored and find something different. So think about how you can have something new and fresh to offer each grade level, and maybe even recruit your teachers to think about what are they teaching during the school year that you could complement in that after school or summer school program. So maybe your second graders are learning about animal adaptations. You could totally design a camp around building different animals with bricks, exploring their ecosystems, and thinking about how those animals survive. So there are tons of different opportunities to get creative here. You could even bring in some of the math we talked about before. If your middle school students, say, are really trying to focus on engineering design, maybe your focus is on putting together an engineering camp for your middle school students, and maybe you do something different with your 6th, 7th, and 8th graders so they have something to look forward to each year. So research definitely shows that programs that put a lot of thought into their planning ahead of time produce huge results for their students. So all this work you're doing now to think about what kind of programming you're going to offer really does pay off for students as they start coming back year after year and start to see those cumulative gains.
And we certainly need to play on our instructors' strengths. I'm sure that you all know exactly who it is that you have working your curriculum. The first thing we need to do is identify the instructor base. Are you working with students in high school or college that are volunteers? Do you have adult volunteers? Are they professional educators? Obviously, that's going to come into play when you are preparing or purchasing your content. Everyone's program is going to be different, and we need to plan accordingly. Wherever it's possible, you want to pair your instructors with content that they have a background or at least an interest in to enhance the experience for your students. Clearly somebody who has a love of robotics or drones or sports is going to be a more exciting facilitator than someone who does not. Identifying curriculum needed or any training which may be required before the session starts and getting our facilitators through that programming. Ideally having the curriculum in advance so that they can review the materials is always helpful, so that it's not a completely fresh start for everyone on the first day of your program. And if it's impractical or impossible, find programming that does not require the instructor to be a subject matter expert to get the content deployed.
And this final tip here really ties into that it's not just what you're teaching, but how you're teaching it. And so really this last one we feel is the most important, and this is really how you pair all your hands-on activities with these social and emotional skills that we know are so important. So one thing we're really passionate about is 21st century skills and habits of mind. So thinking about who are those instructors that are also going to instill a sense of community, help students learn how to collaborate, how to be creative, how to work together on something and communicate with each other. And also hit those career skills. So things like, can you be flexible if things are different each day? Can you have the initiative to see through an individual project week after week throughout the course of the summer? Giving students opportunities to be leaders, to take charge, and to be accountable for having something that they produce that they want to share with the world at the end of the summer. So on this next slide, we've outlined something that we have plastered on the wall here in our lab. These are the habits of mind. This is another framework you can use and that we love, and it includes all these sort of skills that we know are so important to our students being successful people, whatever they decide to do in the world. So this includes things like being able to listen. Can you collaborate together? Can you find humor? Are you willing to take risks and overcome that fear of failure? And so this is something your instructors, even if they don't necessarily have that content background, if they have a passion for what they're doing and connect with the students, they can bring this to your program as that final secret ingredient that takes it beyond just a class on robotics to a truly meaningful experience for your students. So if you put these together, hitting the physical, social, academic activity, incorporating a variety of learning, not just class by class, but integrated into a single meaningful experience, that's going to have some powerful benefits for your students, both in what they learn, retaining that knowledge from the school year, and also opening up the doors to all these STEM pathways that they may not have considered before. And so, to explore this a little bit further, we wanted to talk to you about one of our PCS camps that we are most excited about for this summer camp season. So this is our claymation camp. It's for students in grades 4 through 8. And so we want to talk through a little bit about what might this look like, putting this together into a program for your students.
So, in claymation camp, you tap into the incredible practice of stop-motion film production, learning the technique from the ground up. It contains everything students need to create individual movies, including top-quality clay, which I've played with, and it is fantastic. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to work with. Fun-to-use software, adorable cameras, and cutting-edge curriculum. And through cumulative daily projects, teamwork, technological literacy, and a little bit of movie-making magic, you're sure to win awards at the film festival held at the end of the camp.
Absolutely. Now, the other thing we love about this is that there is so much going on. For students, the excitement comes from being able to make your own clay creations, film your own videos, and through that process, students are engaging together in groups. They often are probably taking on different roles. Maybe one day they're manning the camera as the filmmaker. Maybe another day they're taking on that artistic side of crafting some different characters. These are some of the ones we've created here. There's also the technical side of the software and looking into how many frames per second that you might need to make a smooth image. And that's where you're going to start to see some of the math that's naturally going to be integrated in, and some of the science too, of thinking about how can you exaggerate the physics of movement to make a realistic looking cartoon movie. So as students are going through this, they're also going through the creative process of figuring out what do we want a movie to be about, and then how do we actually follow that through and have enough structure to make a storyboard, get our footage, review it, get B-roll, make edits. So that process there involves so much social interaction and so many skills to manage a project, see something through that you're really proud of at the end. And so through that, you're going to see a lot of these positive benefits of students eventually being able to take some risks, of having that interest in something they may not have experienced before, and maybe coming out with some leadership skills that they may not have discovered before.
So summer learning programs clearly mitigate some of our summer learning loss. And can lead to achievement gains, actually, over the summer months. And we've seen in longitudinal studies that conclude the effects of summer learning programs endure for at least 2 years after the student has engaged and completed that summer programming. This means that summer camps boost knowledge retention in our students. And clearly that's why we're here doing what we do. Buffering the loss of math knowledge and skills with learning that endures is incredibly powerful. And it also mitigates the loss by reinforcing old skills while new skills and knowledge are applied over the coming years, which reduces the amount of time that teachers have to spend reteaching content that should have hopefully carried over from year to year. And let's say that Claymation Camp, as an example, plants a seed of video discovery in a student, and as they progress through their academic career engaging in video production classes, they can spend their time refining those skills rather than learning what they already know, putting them leagues ahead of their classmates, even at grade level. And this could be the jumping off point for, say, the next Ron Howard or George Lucas, where you just take a student who may never have thought about film production and giving them that skill is something that they can take and proceed with indefinitely. And so now let's say that students are producing videos at home. Now that they have the basic skills from the camp, they can upload stop motion clips to YouTube. They're engaging with content outside of the classroom, which is always a plus, and engaging in skills and knowledge that they're interested in, leading to a video production degree or career opportunities down the road, all because of their exposure and early engagement with STEM products through your programming. And this is why early engagement with STEM fields is crucial. It leads to an extraordinary increase in potential STEM career pathways as students become adults. And professing a STEM career interest by 8th grade is a more accurate indicator of becoming of obtaining a STEM-related college degree than math and science test scores.
And that's powerful, just to know that being interested matters more than test scores. There was even another study came out recently that we were really excited about, that simply talking to students about STEM careers was enough to increase the likelihood that they would go on to pursue those careers and be successful. So just engaging students in a new field that they may not have encountered before can be enough to set that spark that could lead to a whole new career.
Cool. So at PCS Adventures, it's our goal to increase academic achievement in students around the world, from combating summer learning loss to helping nurture experts of the youngest generation. By increasing STEM knowledge and comprehension across the board, we can't wait to see what our youngest students will do, and we can't wait to start a STEM venture with all of you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions that we'd like to address as a group before we go ahead and start our giveaway? Go ahead and enter your questions into that panel that's on the side. We did have one question during the webinar about how long the camps that PCS Edventures makes run. What is the content hours for that?
So we typically split our camps up into 1-hour segments. They're designed to be flexible, so some people combine those together for longer segments or even split them up if you have half an hour or 45 minutes. And they come with at least 12 hours. And we always say at least because we know that timing can be really flexible based on the interest of your students, and because we include a lot of extensions that if your students are really into what they're doing, where they can take that further. So at least 12 1-hour segments with a big emphasis on the 12 plus, knowing how deep students can go when they get really into what they're working on.
Another question here is how to accommodate kids with special needs like ADHD or even on the autism spectrum.
That's a great question. And in fact, a lot of our work around Brick Lab, which you can see here, actually started with trying to figure out how can we get students with some of those special needs that you mentioned more engaged and more interested in science. And so I think that hands-on component can be really powerful. Also having an individualized learning. So a lot of our stuff is set up so that students don't have to be progressing at the same pace, that they can take as long as they want or go as fast or as slow as they want based on how interested or how much time they need to really get deep into the material. So that can be a really powerful strategy too, knowing that students come in with all different interest levels and all different levels of background knowledge and learning styles to really set students free to go at their own pace in their own style.
Awesome. We have one question about PCS Edventures summer camps in particular. Are they available for rent, to purchase? What does that look like when you're getting a PCS Edventures camp?
Yeah, so we offer our camps in 2 different formats. So the first one is a full camp package, and so this comes with everything you need. So knowing that instructors come in with all different levels of ability and time. So these would come with all of the materials you need, all the curriculum, full printed sets of student handouts so that you don't have to go to Kinko's and be making copies, and that as an instructor you don't have to develop your own curriculum about how to use these materials. So those full camps come as kind of a complete package that's yours, and they're designed to be really reusable so that there are only a few materials you might have to replace for the next year, so that once you have, say, your brick lab, those bricks are yours. You're not buying new things the next year. You can reuse those and then always come back to see what new curriculum we've come up with, new ways of using those same materials. Now, the other option is we know a lot of people already have a brick lab or maybe have some legacy Legos or other materials that they already have but are looking for kind of new and exciting ways to use. So we also offer digital curriculum downloads. And so this is another way, if you already have some materials but are looking for new ways to use them, you can get that curriculum download that has all the lesson plans, all the build plans for students, all the ideas that you can then pass on to your instructors to use with the materials that they already have.
Absolutely. Well, and I think it's important just to tag on to what Michelle was talking about. The difference, or I think one of the things that highlights our camp product, the package itself, is it comes, you can literally take it to an empty gymnasium or a park and it has everything. If it calls for, 100, 12-inch pieces of string, all of that string is ready in the box for deployment. If it calls for pencils or crayons or paper or scissors, it's there. So it's not you don't need to deploy the camp at a facility where you can get access to materials. So I think that's certainly helpful when you don't always have complete control over the setting for your day's camp. So.
Absolutely. Well, and it comes with storage materials too. We know that's a huge consideration if you're doing this during the summer and then need to store it again for the next year. So all of our camps come in heavy-duty storage tubs that can either be individual for students or one big tub for all the camp materials. So you can put that on the shelf knowing it's ready for you to pull off when you start again the next year.
Exactly.
What about recommendations for how many kids per camp is a good number to work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our camps come with supplies for up to 30 students. So we find some sites use these as kind of 2 years worth of supplies if they're working with a small group, or if you have a huge program with tons of students enrolling, you may want up to 30 students. We find that the smaller class size you can get, the better, but if you have a large group and a lot of instructors, that can be a really energetic, dynamic environment too. So our stuff comes equipped to really work with whatever group size you have. You want as many students there as possible, so we want to be sure you have enough materials if you do have a really big group, because everyone's excited to come.
Exactly. Everybody wants to participate.
So I had a few questions come through that were pretty specific, and so I've let those attendees know that we can follow up with them individually, but I wanted to share that with everyone who's watching here. If you have a question come up later, or if there's something very specific to your program and you're wondering how something like this would work, please feel free to contact us at any time. You can send an email to support@edventures.com, and that's ED just like our name, PCS Edventures. And then you can also give us a call at 800-429-3110, and we can help answer any of these summer camp questions that you have. There's one more question here that I'd like to address before we do our giveaway, and that is, how do we incorporate art into your curriculum as well as STEM?
Oh, that's a great question. So claymation is one of our favorites for that reason, and that you do have that art of creating your clay characters, also the art of creating a story and filming that and capturing that. Some other examples of camps that have a lot of art. We have a camp coming out that we're really excited about that is called Traveling Artist Camp. And so this one has a different art project from a different place in the world each day. And then with every art project, there are extensions where you can go deep into the science. So one example would be they do one Japanese suminagashi, where they drip ink onto water and lift it up into the paper, and so that allows you to create this great paper that has this unique pattern. And from there you can then talk about, well, how does that work, which is going to lead you into capillary action, the surface tension of the water that allows the paint to get on top, the hydrophobic properties of the water that causes it to bead up instead of to spread out. And so we chose art projects that had a lot of interesting science that you could incorporate with your students. So we'd be happy to share any other examples with you, but we definitely believe in the full STEAM experience, especially because that's so exciting for so many students.
Well, and I think a lot too of our content can be used as a jumping off point. So say with the claymation camp in particular, you can work through the 12
Absolutely.
the 12 days worth of content that we've created, and then you have the clay and the cameras that you can take that ball and run with it in whatever direction you or your students whatever wherever that interest lies, you can certainly create your own content. They'll have a level of mastery having done the programming, and then you can expand indefinitely from that point.
Absolutely. And our approach really in our curriculum is to give students the essential skills they need. How do you operate the camera? How does the software work? How do you work with clay? And then get out of the way and let them go, and really be there to be a coach, a facilitator, to just keep pushing them to think, what's the next thing you want to do? What else could you do with this?
Exactly.
Awesome. So again, wanted to remind you that if you want to reach out to us, we're based here in Boise, Idaho. You can send an email to support@edventures.com or call our toll-free line at 1-800-429-3110. It's time now to give away our free summer camp, value up to $875, and it looks like Margaret Grass is the winner of that giveaway.
Wow.
So congratulations, Margaret. We've got your email here, and we'll be following up with you individually to help you select the camp that you want to have sent your way and gather your shipping information. If you'd like to sign up for our newsletters to learn more about upcoming webinars that we have, again, if you send your email to support@edventures.com, we'll get you added to that. We do a lot of giveaways with our webinars, and we're also happy to help with any questions you have about STEM and summer programs. So thanks for joining us today, and Margaret, you'll be hearing from us here in a few minutes.